Hello, my name is Zajac. I'm CEO and founder of SoTrender.
And my name is John Bailey. I'm the head of product at SoTrender.
And today we're going to present about federated analytics and the whole federation approach to the data. Why? Because it helps us in the cookieless era. Because it's a new solution to enrich the data, to analyze them and benchmark, compare, and finally also to run federated learning models. As you might already have heard today, the doomsday is coming. And for many marketers, it's quite a dangerous situation. And I'm sure that some of you are afraid, what are we going to do without cookies? But we know there are also the others. For some of you, it's just the new normal. And I guess you're not that much terrified of the cookie monster.
And whether you are or whether you're not, we still are going to need to get the insights. We still need to make conclusions, look at benchmarks, and know what's going on in our industry and where we need to go and how to improve. So we're going to suggest a technique to help you with that. So before we start, I wanted to do a little quiz. If you could tell me what all the countries represented by the flags here have in common. I'll give you a few seconds to think about it.
I know.
You know? No, yeah, no cheating, please. He's already seen the slides. So Mr. Spock is going to give you a little bit of a clue. If you haven't guessed already, these are all federations. And what we're going to talk about is how federation, the principle of federation can be applied to data and processing large amounts of data. So federations are powerful but autonomous entities. So we need to make sure that in data federation, which is currently a very hot topic, that we can treat data in autonomous and but also a powerful fashion by respecting privacy of the holders of that data by which we want to get insights from. And we're going to talk a little bit about what that would mean in an advertising word, specifically Facebook.
What's in it for me? Well, let me just ask you two simple questions. One is, would you like to know spending, costs, targeting of your direct competitors?
Sure, why not?
I bet, yeah. I would, and I'm sure you would too. You're all sneaky, right? But then comes the other question. So would you like to know would you like your competitors to know your exact spending, costs, targeting? Not much, right?
No, I don't think so.
Nobody. Well, so it's quite complicated, quite common situation. There's confidential data. We wouldn't like to share it with the others, but we would like to know the industry standards and the levels for benchmarks. And one of the solutions to help us with that might be just federation of data.
Exactly. So what we want to talk a little bit first is the general principle, because it's been applied to several fields and several domains, most recently by Google in terms of machine learning. So once applied for AI and advanced analytics, this is a method that Google are using right now to protect people's privacy while still building large amounts of insights about a diverse group of users and applications. And the way it's currently being applied, for example, in IoT or wearable devices, smartwatches, phones, trackers of your cycling, Jan's a big cyclist, so he's also participated, I'm sure, in some of these programs, is they are using the information from individuals' devices without actually taking the data off that device. And we're going to talk about how that could be used, the same principle, in Facebook advertising. So remember that thought. We'll just quickly go further into what that means from a technical point of view. So as we've already talked about it, there's lots of data on all our devices. We're gathering data on our phones on an hourly, minutely, secondly basis about what we're doing, what text we're typing, how many steps we're walking, probably enough if it's in my case. And companies would like to improve their applications by finding out what's going on. So is their predictive text algorithm working correctly, or is the step counter going the way that people would like it to go? But hang on a minute, all that data is kind of personal. So I don't think I would like my text to be sent to somebody in the cloud to be able to read them. So as you can see in the cartoon, we want to get the information from the device without getting the data off the device. So the way that we can do that is by sending the algorithms, the machine learning algorithms or the analytical algorithms that we need to the devices. They calculate the insights, then return only the results, the insights from that calculation back to the mothership. What's more, in order to add an even greater layer of security, they should be encrypted in a way so only the aggregates can be decrypted, so that somebody in the mothership can only see the kind of the data that has been aggregated and not see the individual data items, so they can't tell that I only did 3 steps last week, for example.
Okay, thank you, Google. That's it. We really love your examples, and we strongly recommend you to go to this website, federatedwithgoogle.com, to see they have the entire comic book about federation of data. But now, let's go to our case study. We're SoTrender. We are focused on reporting and analyzing social media marketing data. So we have huge data sets of data about Facebook marketing activities, both organic and recently also paid. And we have also our own data science team. So, this bunch of machine learning engineers and data nerds who are really keen on examining new approaches like federation of data. What have they done? So we adopted these principles for benchmarking of Facebook advertising. The data independence is maintained. So we don't have a central database. No, we have different databases for each of the clients. We don't know, we cannot have a sneak peek into any of them. We just know the aggregates. And then we run the algorithm that asks each client about his data, but not about the exact value, but it's through a series of conditional checks. So is your CPM value lower than X? Yes, no. Just that, without knowing the exact value, we don't need it. We just need the rank. We just need the order. How does it work? Well, it's just a ranking or a percentile scale. If you have children, or if you have good memories from your childhood, you will remember centiles and percentiles. Basically, you go to a doctor, and it tells you, well, 75% percentile, the meaning that 75% of kids are not taller than you. Or, for example, 20 percentile in terms of the weight, and so on. So you could have this comparison on the percentile scale. How do you compare towards others? And you can also build summary results from the group level for the entire market in a particular country or for particular industry. There are actually 2 ways of defining benchmarks and competitors. One is the classical one. So you just take the industry. You could use Facebook classification, or we can think about our own, just to understand who should compare to whom. But there's also another definition of competitors, by audience. So people, campaigns, brands targeting the same audiences, which is actually very in line with the whole principle of Facebook advertising. And then you compete about the same audience, sometimes with completely different industries. Altogether, what you get is, first of all, a percentile score of your particular company or campaign or brand or even an ad set. So you can compare it using different principles like on this screen. It's a percentile scale, so higher it is, better it is, from 0 up to 100. This is a real case example, an anonymous company. So most of the scores are pretty low, like spending score, 3. So just 3% of companies that they compare to spend less or no more than them. Impression score just 11, so just 11% of them have lower or the same number of impressions. So basically, they don't have a huge reach. They don't have very good scores, with one exception: CPM score. It's pretty high, and remember, higher it is, better it is, meaning the CPM is pretty low. As much as 81% of the industry, they have higher CPMs. So actually, they're quite a smart company. They're pretty frugal. They don't spend much. They don't have many impressions, but they don't pay much for that neither. So using that, you could have your particular company or just a campaign measured, benchmarked towards others with full respect to privacy and anonymity. But then you can also do nicer things with building industry-level benchmarks, as we did, for example, comparing CPC, cost per click, for Facebook in Poland. The average is 0.80, less than 1 zloty. It's for more or less 20 cents. It's for more than 20,000 campaigns run in Poland between Q1 and Q3 this year. you might think is a lot, but first of all, well, if you take link click as a goal, it's already much lower. It's just 0.64. Why? Well, apparently there are many campaigns when the goal set is different. For example, page engagement, but there are also some links. So it costs more to get people clicking on them. But then also, median for link-links campaigns is just 0.36. So it's like the average is much higher. But this is because of some campaigns where people pay much more. 50% of the campaigns, they pay no more than 36 zloty, or more or less 10 US cents for a click. Not much, probably. Still, there are some of them, they pay much more, 10 zloty, 20 zloty, 100 zloty sometimes. If they have very high margin, if they have very specific audience, if they have nice conversion rate, that still might pay off for them. And you know probably the examples and the case studies. Sometimes it makes sense to pay a lot for Facebook clicks. That's why also the average might be misleading here. And we're coming back to our university or sometimes high school statistics. So median versus average. And then comes the second measure we all love and observe on a daily basis in the marketing industry, which is CPM, cost per mil. So 1,000 impressions on Facebook. On average, across all industries, the average cost right now in 2021 was just 7.48 PLN, more or less $2. It wasn't very surprising for us because we have been observing similar values over years. It didn't change that much in our eyes. Still, it gets much more interesting if you go and compare different industries. For example, appliances. It's just 4.83. Much lower because it's very general targeting. It's a broad industry targeting wide audience. On the other hand, well, it's something good for us as marketers, advertisers. We are much more precious. CPM for marketing and advertising targeting is twice as high as the market's average. So, do you feel appreciated?
I do.
I do as well. So yeah, they really like us and they want to pay us more. And what's going to happen next, John?
So measuring is one step. So if we look at maybe a typical scenario from, let's take my youth, and also my kids, I had lots of marks in my kitchen to show how tall or how not so tall I was growing. And every week I would measure myself. Have I grown any taller? Yes, no. Well, that tells you something. But then, of course, when I went to my class and I was looking at my peers, am I the tallest kid in the class or maybe not? Not probably was the case. So the benchmarking was extremely important, but what I really, really wanted was to grow taller to make, for example, or make it easier to get in the basketball team or become a goalkeeper. And so optimization of my height was one of the big goals in my childhood. It didn't really work. And so this also applies to Facebook advertising data, right? So not only do we want to measure, know how we're doing, measure how we're doing against the right group of competitors, as Jan explained earlier, but also how can we improve? And we think we can use federated learning to gather that data in, again, a way that doesn't reveal any private information to recommend that hanging off an iron bar is a good way to grow you taller, or certain techniques to improve your CPM or CPC might actually help you in your industry.
That would be basically, in other words, just measurement, then federated analytics to building benchmarks, and then federated learning to build precise optimization tips and recommendations.
Yep.
And now, at the end, let's leave the world of Facebook advertising and let's think about something bigger. Sometimes I'm a dreamer. I'm not the only one, I guess. So I had an idea. Well, we can use this approach not only for Facebook data. We could use it also for other areas in the marketing and advertising industry. So maybe could you please imagine publishers and advertisers joining forces and using this federation of data to share in a very confident and also private way, the very confidential data about campaigns, their costs, and so on, to build benchmarks, but maybe also to build optimization algorithms, something that could be used across different companies. So maybe, just maybe, that could be a solution for independent publishers. maybe there is a future outside of walled gardens, and maybe like smaller players with just this first-party cookies and other first-party data, they could unite their forces and they could build something with federated principles that could be used for their joint benefit. Just maybe, because it won't be easy, but let myself be a dreamer this time. Thank you very much. It was a pleasure. Looking forward to your questions and comments, and have a great rest of the conference.
Thank you.
Bye-bye.